Okay, so I have another 5 to go. I have to put on my my yellow, and then another 4 red. This is really thread intensive, by the way, and I mean really, really thread intensive. You will go through a ton of thread doing this, but that's okay. This bag, honestly, even like once it's done, if somebody were to take a pair of scissors and snip straight up and snip one row off, the other two would stick together. It's just so well reinforced. So, okay, so I've got 4 red to go on. So that's 1, 2. Get my tail out. Ouch. Pull off my stop bead too. And you'll notice actually the tail is in the middle of the row, which technically is the first row, but it really doesn't matter which way you start. It doesn't matter at all. You can start wherever you'd like. Okay, and then finishing off the last row, or the last one on the row. There's nothing new here, so I'm going to go into the top of that one. And sometimes, by the way, actually I'm going to pull that tail a little bit tighter. Sometimes if you find your needle is tight, it's probably because there's because of the thread. So I'll put that through those two. So it's the same thing. Down 2 and up 2. So that is 3 rows done. All I've got to do now is flip it back over towards me. And now I'm going to be following the middle row, or the second row. So I need to put on 3 red beads. But remember, it's the beginning of a row, so I'm going to start with 2 beads. So we'll pick up 2 red beads. Okay, and come in a little bit closer here again. Okay, so got my 2 red beads on, and I don't really slide them down. So I'm coming out of the bottom of this bead. I'm going to go one above that and come down through both of those beads. And I'm going to pull. And then I'll come back up the 2 beads I just added. Okay, so I went down 2, up 2. Now I'll pick up one at a time. So now my next pattern is, remember, I'm attaching to this row here, so I want to follow the pattern of the row behind it. So we've got 1, 2, 3 reds. Okay, so I'm going to go into the red here, and I'm going to go into the red below it as well. So down 2, up 2. The next bead in my pattern is a green one. So I'm going to go into the red beside that green and the one below that red. So 2 reds, down 2. Now I've got to go back up 2. So, and you just do this continuously. So whatever row that you're attaching to, you want to follow the pattern of the row behind it. So I will leave you. I'm going to get towards the end of this row again, and then I will show you the beginning of the next row after that. And hopefully you should really have it by then. And then I won't stop again until I have quite a bit of the pattern established so you can see what it looks like. Okay, well, I'm at the point now where I need to add some more thread. So about 1 meter did 3.5 rows, and that was it. So it, as I said, it's thread intensive. Now, quite often I will tie 2 of these ends together and create a knot, which I could do with this one. I just find with Wildfire it doesn't work quite as well as the fire line that I use, so I won't worry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the next bead, and I'm going to show you how I tie this on. So I'll pick up my next bead, and I'll go down, and then rather than come up, I'm actually going to go down just a few beads. Now, a lot of people have said, oh, just weave your way through it and don't worry about it and it'll be fine. Well, I actually have done that many times, and oh, big mistake, didn't love it. On this one, I'm also going to go up the next row. And I'm doing that because I also need to tie in with my new thread. So I want to make sure that I can do that. All right, those two are a little bit tight, but that's okay. And you don't have to tie an awful lot of knots on this because it really is quite a tight little thing. But I'm going to catch the thread bridge in between these beads. Just underneath, so the thread that's attached in between them. And I'm going to go through that once, twice, and then I want to pull that knot, and then I'm going to go up the next bead because I want to pull that knot inside that bead. And I'm going to do this twice. So I'm going to pull that up in. And catch the next thread bridge. I don't really generally do it more than that. So go through once. My thread's getting short. Twice. And then pull. And make sure that I pull out my tail. There we go. So now I want to go up the next bead and pull that knot up inside that bead. And be careful because you can break beads doing this. So I'm thinking I may go to a different needle. So pull that off. And now one of the other tools I forgot to mention was a thread burner, which I love. So I can actually just burn that off right there. Get rid of that little piece. And then I can just burn down that end a little if I need to. Okay. So now I'm going to thread this needle, and it does help if you flatten your thread a little bit. So now I could tie knots in this one. The only problem I have with that is that I'm going to have to also attach another row to this one. So I can do one of two things. I can just run my needle up through here and leave enough of a tail that I can sew in later, which is what I probably will do. Or I can just go in and start doing a couple knots in this row and then skip over to this row, which is what I've done a few times before. But I think for now what I'll do is I'm simply gonna just come straight up a few of the beads here. In fact, maybe I'll just go up those two. And I do want to leave a bit of a tail for myself. Now, this isn't too big of a deal because, make sure I can sew that in, with having a loose tail here, because it doesn't take long to actually have this kind of tied up in here. So I'll hold on to that tail for now. I have 2 more red beads to go in my little row here. Sorry, hopefully I was in frame there. So I'm going to go down 2 of my red beads there and pull. So I usually work with around a meter at a time or so, which is just over 3 feet, I think. So I'm just going to pull that through, and that's more or less going to have that piece there secured. Now I don't really have to worry about it anymore. And I can just continue on until the very end of the row. And I will be back when I put the last one on. And yeah, hopefully by now it's fairly clear for you to follow. Okay, so I'm going to add my last red for the row so you can see that one more time. So I'll pick up my red. And I'm going to go into the row behind just the way I normally do, and I'm going to go down 2 beads. And get tangled up. So down 2 beads and back up 2 beads. And then once again, I'm going to flip over. See if I can pull this back up over here So you can sort of start to see the sash pattern appearing. I am going to work on this pattern a little bit, so I have a little bit of a longer strip, so you can really see what the sash pattern will look like. And after that, I will complete most of the bag and then show you how to finish it off. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, well, I started this, filming this, I don't know, I think it was 2 months ago, I think. It's now September, whenever I did start, and it's taken me a good while to do this, this sash bag, and mostly it's taken me that amount of time because I ran out of beads, I had to reorder some, and then I have been crazy busy. So I decided that I'm pretty close to being done, more or less here. So what I would like to do now is show you how to put the buttonhole in. I'm not going to put in the button yet, but the buttonhole. And so how I want to do that is I want to make sure that my button is kind of in the center. Whoops, sorry, my buttonhole. Get this a little bit closer here. And I just want to kind of determine how big to make this buttonhole. And essentially, what I want is for the hole to go from a yellow bead to a yellow bead, basically. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to show you how I do that. So you've already seen how to do the square stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to square stitch until I get to this point right here, this bead right here. So I will be back. All right, so I'm just going to keep working this till I get to the point I want to be. And if you remember, when I do this pattern, I'm basically following the same pattern as the row before, behind the one I'm actually attaching to. I'm probably not even in frame, so let me just get back in there. So one more green, and then one more red. And then I will be at the exact same point as where I need to be in order to create a hole for my button. All right. Now, in order to create a hole for the button, the beads that are right here, I want to make sure that they're not attached. So I have to put on, as I said, the previous row bead, that sequence. So I want to do 1, 2, 3 red. So I'm going to pick up 3 red. And then these sequences white, red, white. And then another 3 red. Now, all of those beads, I'm going to just bring them down. So those are the beads there. So now what I need to do is I also need to get another red bead on to go beside this yellow, because I'm going to attach to the yellow. But I'm going to treat this like the beginning of a row, so I'm going to add 2 more beads on. So I have to pick up a red and a green. So I'll pick up a red and a green, which means I'm going to have to go down this red and the yellow. And I'm going to pull. And I just want to make sure this is going to fit properly, because it just looks a little bit funny. I may have to change some beads out here and see what's going on here. Why is this not working out right? well, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to give it a shot anyway, because it may fit on nicely with the next row. So we'll just leave it at that for the time being. So, all right. So now all I need to do is simply square stitch to the end. So again, following the pattern from the previous row. And I'm going to square stitch now to the end, and then I'll come back until I'm at this green bead here, or close to the green bead, maybe the red bead before it. And then I will, then I'll turn the camera back on and show you what to do next. But before I do that, what I want to do is get my button and make sure my button will comfortably pass through that hole. And it does. All right, so I will be right back. All right, so I've flipped it over so it's facing me again. And I'm just putting on my green bead here. And now here's where my little open piece is there. And so the next bead in the sequence is a red. So I'll put on my red bead. And then my yellow bead, which is the bead just before the opening happens. So there's my yellow bead on, and now the open sequence is there. It's where it's all loose. And the way we do this is we just pretend that nothing's happened there, and we just continue on actually as normal. So I'm going to square stitch the sequence behind this row, so this sequence here. So I've got 2 red beads to go on. And really, it's not different at all. So I will square stitch all of this on for you to see. There's nothing different here. So those just get attached to this. Now I've got a sequence of 3 blues, and each of those is separated by a red bead. So let me just really make sure I'm in frame there. And that's it. That's all it is to create that little buttonhole. And I really like doing this with square stitch because it is really, really simple. To create that little buttonhole with peyote, for example, it's not as easy as this. This just doesn't get simpler than this. And it looks nice. Everything is still really stable and stabilized. And so this is one of my favorite ways to create sort of a buttonhole. And you can do this on square stitch bracelets as well. And in fact, I'm going to be doing one of these sashes as a bracelet. It's a slightly different pattern. It's actually a pattern that I got off of Etsy. So I'll be doing that. I'm not going to take you through how to do it because it's pretty much identical to this. There's really no difference. And I'm going to be putting the button on in the exact same way. So yeah, this is just a great, great way to add a buttonhole. So I'm going to finish this off just past where the join is, because I think it's important to see the whole thing. Yeah, I'll just go 2 beads past the join. So this is the last bead, the last loose bead attached. And I'll just go a couple beads past that join, and then we'll just do one more test of the button. I mean, it should be fine. And then one more bead just past that join, and then the rest is the same for however long I want the lid to be. Okay, we'll put that through. Now let's just test that opening one more time and see if our button will go through that. And it does. It's a bit of a snug fit, but that's what I want. So anyway, that's how I can put my buttonhole in. I'm going to finish this up, and I'm going to do a few more rows to finish off the lid. And I don't know if I'm going to make this a little bit longer. I might do that. If I decide I want to make this longer, I just have to join on this end and make this end longer, because I've already more or less decided to put my my buttonhole here. Now I could always come back and square stitch that closed and move the buttonhole, but it's much easier just to start on this end if I feel like I want to make this a bit longer. Okay, so I'm going to work on this a little bit more now, and I'm going to get a little bit more length on the lid. And then that's it. I will determine how long I want this to be. So the next time I come back, I will show you how to sew this together. And then I will show you how to put fringing on it, because all sashes have fringe. And then that's it. This little bag will be done. Okay, we'll see you in a little bit. All right. Well, I have taken this to the size I want it to be. And there's my my little buttonhole spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just brick stitch down about 10 rows roughly. So what I want to do is I'm going to put my needle into one of these rows just so I have an idea kind of where I want to stop. Okay, you've seen me do brick stitch before. You have seen me do it, in fact, on the last video. It's sort of a free brick stitch. And I've done brick stitch before on my hide bag. So this is no different. So I'm gonna start out by picking up 2 beads, and you see between those first 2 rows there's one thread bridge, then I go to the next 2 rows over and there's another thread bridge right there. So I'm going to go, this is how I'm actually going to be doing my brick stitch. So I'm going to go through there, I'm going to pull, and now I'm going to go back up this second bead here, and I'm going to pull. Now these 2 are kind of facing each other, so what I want to do is I want to stabilize this so they're sitting straight. They're not kind of sitting at an angle. So what that means is I'm coming out of this second bead here. I'm going to go back down this first bead, just the first bead, and I'm going to come back up that second bead again. And what happens is this thread will wrap around the base of those 2 beads and should, in theory, squeeze them together so they're actually sitting upright. Now, I'm only going to be doing 1 at a time. And for me, when I do brick stitch like this, I know I kind of went in that way, but I'll show you. This is my normal way of coming towards me, but it doesn't matter which direction you go, away from you or towards you, it's the same thing. So I'm going to hold that thread, and then I'm going to go up through that bottom hole there of that bead. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I get to where I want to start sewing the bag together. And I'm doing this all in red because my thread is red, and you'll see sort of the threads along the outside there, so I'd like them to match. Now I could put a little sort of a fancy fringe or a picot trim on it. I've been at this bag more than long enough, I think, anyway, so I won't be doing that. I just want to, I want to be done with this bag, to be honest with you. I have to go one more here. I was just one bead short on the row I needed to do. Sorry, I'm probably out of camera frame yet again. So now I'm going to match these guys up. And I should be okay to go. So now I'm going to pick up another bead. And I'm trying to pick up sort of the bigger beads that I have. And what I'm doing is I'm going through the thread bridges of the back one and the front flap here. Going through both of those thread bridges. Now if I wanted to, I could also use a larger size bead, a size 8, to put on the outside there, but I don't think I will bother with that. I don't think I need to worry about that at all. So I'm just going to go down row by row. And again, it's the exact same thing I've just been doing just now up here. Nothing is any different. I'm just picking up a bead and I'm going through the thread bridge, but I'm going through the thread bridge on the back piece as well as this front piece. So I'm going through 2 different thread bridges. So I'm gonna, I'll get that all sewn right down to the bottom here. And when I'm done that, I will, I'll come back and show you the next step. So I finished sewing up both sides. They're all nice and secure. Now comes the fun part. Facetiously said. So this can be really the difficult part. This weaving is done so tightly. And, you know, next time I do this, I am not using Wildfire. I think it's too thick. And I'm going to just use a red Nymo next time. I really, I've never struggled with square stitch so much before. But the cool thing is, though, is that this ain't going nowhere. That's for sure. So I've tied a knot and I've come through this this white bead here. And what I'm going to do is I put some little red 15s on my bead mat here. And I'm going to pick up I think just one size 11 or size 10, these ones are, I believe. And then I'm going to go through my button. See, I don't need it to be really big and bulky. And then I'm going to pick up an 11 and 15 and an 11. And I think that should span that gap there quite nicely to go across. And then I'm going to go through the button again. And then I'm going to go back through my little red 11. And now this is where it can get really, really, really tricky. And if I'm finding it's too hard to get through this white bead, what I will probably do is I will just sew it directly down through those beads like it's a fabric. And that's probably what I'm going to end up having to do because this is crazy tight. And it doesn't matter. It's fine to do it like this. And pull that nice and tight. And what I'm going to do though is I'm just going to make sure this is still going to be okay as a closure like that. And then I'll just show you how that's going to look once we've got that sorted out. Isn't that awesome? I really love that. I think that is so pretty. And once I've reinforced it lots and lots and lots of times, I will come back and then we'll get onto the fringing. Okay, so I'm gonna start my my fringing on my lid here, and let's lay that out here. Now I do have some red Nymo somewhere. I just can't find it, so I'm using this horrible, cheaper white version. Not in love with it, really not. So what I'm gonna do is this whole row is all gonna be just red. So I'm going to try and do about 30. Okay, sorry, I did skip ahead because I kind of figured you do not need to sit here and watch me pick up 30 beads. Okay, so this is like my 5th time of filming this part. I am just not having an easy time with this at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm coming out my right of this bead. So I'm going to come out the right, I'm going to go back in on the left hand side, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But I want to pick up a little 15, and then I'm going to pick up 30 red beads, 1 white bead, and 3 red 15s. And when I've done that, I will be right back. Okay, I got my little sequence on here. I'll move that up a little closer. So I'm going to skip these 3 15s. You've seen me do this before, and I'm going to come back up that group of 30-ish beads all the way up. Now, if you remember, I added a 15-0 before I added the 30 size 10s. I'm not going to go through that 15-0. I'm going to go through everything but that one. And we'll just pull. My Nymo, I know, is going to tangle on me probably like 20,000 times. I'm sure of it. That's typical of Nymo. Okay, so I've done that. I'm going to now pick up another size 15, and I'm coming out that side of this 11. I'm going to come back in the opposite side of that 11, and I'm going to go through it, if I can, and the 11 next to it, so I can try to set up for my next fringe piece. There we go. And yes, there's the first tangle, and yeah, I'll be fighting with that for a little bit, I'm sure of it. I'll just suffer through it. I really cannot find my, I can't find my good Nymo, and I really don't know why. So let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna try it like this. Okay, so pick up another 15, and I think I'm gonna make this kind of zigzag, I believe, and I'm gonna reduce by okay, so I actually picked up 26 instead because it just wasn't gonna work out by the looks of it. So all right, so I'm gonna go up, so I'll go down by 4 each time, and until I get to, I don't know. I'll just kind of play it by ear. So I'm going to go all the way up these guys again, remembering to skip that 15 at the end there. Don't need to pick that one up. And then I'm going to come in nice and tight here. Now, in order to give myself enough room for my fringe, I'm going to come back up through this 15 here that was on the previous strand, and then that should give me enough room. Yes, that should work. Okay, happy with that. And so now I'm going to go through this bead that I'm trying to create the same row as, and then hopefully the second bead next to that. It can be really difficult, really tight, so just give me a second. I'll get my fingers out in a moment. And I'm probably going to break my needle, but that's okay. I got lots of them. There we go. That's very tight, but I got it. Okay. Sorry, I know everything is just out of frame here, I think. Okay, back in frame. Here we go. All right. So I reduced that one by 4. I'll reduce the next one by 4. So that was 26. Next one I pick up will be 22, and then I'll go down to 18. And then I'll start making my way back up. So I'll make these kind of zigzagged. And the reason I'm doing that is because these beads are not all equal size. So it just looks, if I try to make a straight fringe across with these, it's going to look kind of ridiculous. So I'm not even going to attempt that. All right, so I'm going to keep fringing in this way. And then when I'm at least halfway across, I will show you how that looks. Okay, we are halfway through. Just put on my the very middle one here, and you can see this is really nice and full and bunched up, and it looks beautiful. And yay, I found my Nymo, and I make my own thread conditioner. It all smells nice and minty. It smells good, and it works incredibly well. I'm going to actually show you how to make that your own thread conditioner one day. It's crazy easy to do. Okay, so I'm halfway through. I'm going to finish this off. Well, there we have it. Pretty cool. And all of the fringing, sort of solid different colors. That's very typical of a Metis sash, because each of the threads that would have been woven in would have been left over and used as fringe on the end. And I've been debating on whether I'd put fringe on the bottom, and I think I'm going to call this done because traditionally, the sash would have been, if it was sewn into a purse because it was kind of coming apart on one end or whatever, they might have just rewoven and tied all of the knots on the inside here, and then just left the fringe on one side perhaps. So I don't think I'm going to put the fringing on the bottom, and I'm calling that done. So this is it. That is the Metis Sash tobacco bag, beaded tobacco bag, all finished. So yay, I'm really happy that this project is done. It took me a long time to do it. And just simply not because the beading was so difficult or long to do. I've been crazy busy, as I mentioned already. I've had tons and tons going on in my world. So this is it, all done. And I've got another really cool project coming up on the next video for you. It's not going to be filmed for a little while. I have some more obligations I have to take care of, but it won't be so long between beading next time. All right, if you like what I've done here, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And if there's any projects you'd like to see me try to do, please let me know. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.